Hello, my fellow freaks, geeks, perverts, and all manners of cinephiles, or should I say cinphomaniacs. This is that show. I'm your host, Marcus Hart, alongside my co-host, Dana de la Garza. Welcome. What follows now is a very special introductory episode. It's going to give you the whole rundown on what the show is, what we're about, and what to expect. So stick around. Here it comes. Cinphomaniac has got bad words and even dirtier ideas. Don't worry if you're a prude, because now's the time for you to cross that threshold. I'm kidding, we're pretty tame.
To me, the great hope is just people who normally wouldn't make movies are going to be making them, and, suddenly one day some little fat girl in Ohio is going to be the new Mozart, and make a beautiful film with her little father's camera. To me, the great hope is girl in Ohio is going to be the new Mozart. To me, the great hope is people who normally wouldn't make movies are going to be making them. To me, the great hope is Ohio is going to be the new Mozart. To me, the great hope is people who normally wouldn't make movies are going to be making. To me, the great hope is one day some little fat girl in Ohio is going to just be Mozart. Normally wouldn't make movies in Ohio is making the new Mozart. Just people who normally wouldn't make Mozart and be making. To me, the great hope girl in Ohio is going to make a Mozart beautiful film with her little father's camera recorder, and for once the so-called professionalism about Mozart destroyed forever, and it'll really become an art form. That's my opinion.
What's going on? How's it going?
Hello, my friend. What's up?
So I've been editing episodes that we've already recorded, starting with the one we most recently did, but then yesterday I was editing the Phantom Thread episode we did about a month or so ago, or 2 months ago actually.
Wow, we've been doing this for a minute. Wow.
That's exactly the point. We've been doing this for a minute. So what I kind of want us to talk about is to say, hello to everybody, the potential, and you're here now if you're hearing this, audience, that we're going to be releasing these episodes that we've recorded over the last 6-7 months. And I'm very excited for everyone to be hearing it. Main thing is, we want to keep this going. We're on a good stride and stay current. So, of course, we're going to be recording more episodes each week, as well as continuing to release this backlog that we've been talking about. But yeah, Dan, I just kind of wanted to get your kind of some of your, fond memories, if you will.
Oh my gosh.
Of what we've done so far, since now we're
so many. I have to say, this has been such an educational endeavor for me, because I did study acting, and in studying acting, you study film and you study a little bit of screenwriting and you do some, breakdowns but it's not you don't typically choose what films you study if you're taking an actual class, and you don't typically have your own timeline and your own kind of criteria. So this has been super fun to be able to pick what we're talking about, to pick your brain, someone who's studied this professionally, and then for me to add in my 2 cents as an actor as well has been so much fun, and I look forward to it every week.
Yeah, no. That's the thing. I feel similar. This has been, an experience for me where I thought about it for a long time. Like, we're talking years, before taking the leap with you on this.
Oh, wow.
I've been thinking about, wouldn't it be interesting if I had a podcast? 'Cause I don't know if you've noticed, I have a lot to say. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Anybody who's listening to this, it just means you're cool with hearing us babble about movies, and we love you for that. Because it's a special person. We would still hear us talk for a long time about movies.
Yeah, well, it is a special person. I'm trying to make it in a weird way. This editing experience has been me trying to make it require less of a special person, just in terms of the fact that I tend to get very loud. It's definitely a habit, and when I'm doing this, I'm almost throwing that caution completely to the wind, because it's like the only way I know I'll get the full juice that I think people are looking to hear out there. But as a result, the audio levels and the quality of recording can suffer. So I'm trying to do everything I can to
also, this is I don't know about you, but this is my first podcast. So whatever we get is going to be great to me, because I've never done it before.
Yeah, well, I mean, no, it's my first podcast as well. I mean, that's the thing. So after years of just kind of being like, well, what it would be like to record one, I kind of feel like I have a lot to say, but at the same time, just the whole idea of getting into it felt to me, like ancillary, or like a distraction, or just like a fun daydream, but not something I should be doing. However, around, let's say probably November, or it was earlier, maybe it was about a whole year ago. Yeah, because a whole year ago I started working on my most recent series project as writer and director and producer. And while doing that, the thoughts in relation to, my ambitions for that, I started to think more broadly in terms of how I was putting things out there, thinking more about a wider multimedia approach, and really trying to just use everything I got in my toolbox at my disposal and everything I have time for. And during COVID, I had a lot of time. It's weird because now I have so much less time, but I'm committed. So, and I feel like it's a similar thing with you. But that's the thing. So I kind of had this idea going back almost a whole year. And even after that, it just kind of took a long time for it to actually happen. Not because I didn't want to, I did. But there was a first, when I was pitching it to Yannick, one of my producers, he was like, yeah, but I think you need a co-host. And I was like, oh, I agree. I would love a good co-host, but I don't know who that's going to be. I don't have anyone off the top of my head. Do you? And he's like, no, not really. Well, think about it, or we'll start putting out searches and whatever, Craigslist ads, whatever. And
you were going to go on Craigslist?
Yeah, I wasn't. That's the thing. The whole thought of doing that sounded terrible to me. I was like, that's not going to work. So I thought I just had to think about it. There's got to be somebody. And you and I go back a ways, and we knew each other, but like that was the thing, is like I hadn't really seen you in a while, especially not during COVID, because I'm not going to any bars during that.
Yeah, we weren't even open.
We weren't even open. No, so I hadn't seen you in like probably years at that point, and it wasn't like, it was this thing where just when I was thinking about, okay, who would be a good person to talk to, almost for just, it felt like out otherworldly. It just like, I just started having memories of having like conversations with you, which were pretty brief, but just feeling like there was a very good rapport, and you were just like very good about like really getting into something. So I was like, that's all you need. That's all I want, is I just want someone. And, obviously given your background, I was like, oh, okay, here's someone who acts, who does all this stuff. And actually at the time, I didn't even really know just how much you involved you were in production and writing and so many of the other things I've learned about you since starting on this.
At least like short form, I tend to write more stuff like that. I have written longer things, but nothing that I feel is ready for anyone to read.
No, yeah.
It's all over the place.
I feel like there's definitely some gems in there that I'm looking forward to.
There will be.
Yeah. Nevertheless, I just kind of felt like, oh, here's someone I think I have a good chemistry with, and that's really all I could chalk it up to. It seemed weird because I was like, I have no idea what you're up to. I had no idea if you'd be willing to do this at all. It seemed like a pretty crazy thing to, especially having not talked to you in a while.
Well, not talked to me in a while, and then my Amber, our mutual friend Amber, hit me up.
Yeah.
And when she first talked to me about this podcast, I had been teaching bartending online for a few months. I had been teaching classes both for like corporate happy hours and personal lessons via Zoom. And we had just had a conversation about that. And then she goes, oh, and our buddy Marcus was talking about a podcast. And I said to reach out to you. That's cool. And I said, yeah, absolutely. That would be cool. And my mind, I think just the headspace I was in, and your background from, doing other podcasts about alcohol, I was like, oh, this is probably going to be a podcast about drinking and cocktails. So that'll be fun. And then per our first conversation, we're like, oh, this is not about that at all. And I'm so down to also I could do a podcast about movies just as easily and have just as much fun.
I don't, that's so funny you say that, because I don't remember now if I had explained to Amber exactly.
I don't think she knew anything except that it was you and a podcast, period. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, but that's what's funny about it. I kind of just, maybe I didn't really explain it to her. Maybe I just kind of assumed that like Amber would like figure out more what I was going for, or I think maybe more aptly, was the case. I just thought like, just get Dana to give me a ring, and then we'll figure it out from there. Like I don't think Amber's gonna question what my intentions are. So I was just like, it's a podcast. Reach out to him. You guys figure it out. Absolutely. No, yeah. So I mean that was way back in it was either late January or early February. I think probably late January. So the start of this year.
Really?
Many months ago. Yeah. And that was the thing. And like, I think probably around November-ish, I was like, what if it was I had started to just accept the idea that like, no, I think that's who I should go to. And if she's not interested, she's not interested. But no, even after that, I was like, oh, well, now holidays, now other things. I'm busy with these things. I'm not ready to start. But come New Year, it was an especially slow period in Los Angeles. I was like, this is not only the right time to do this, but I kind of need this right now, like more than usual.
To occupy,
yeah. So I said, okay, let's get started. Let's start recording. And I think, and this is gonna pretend to kind of how I'm gonna go about releasing these archives is. I think the earliest stuff we recorded, there's definitely some good stuff in there, but like a lot of it was just kind of like feeling out how to do this. I know from my own point of view, I thought about myself as like, oh, I'm so good at talking a lot. This should be so easy. And then I very quickly realized like there's a sort of muscle to doing this that you have to work out. Like there's a sort of just flow that you have to get used to getting into.
The cadence.
Yeah. And you can't force it. So I felt like I needed the practice. I felt like I needed to get to know you better, and I didn't want to waste time. So we kind of hit the ground running in terms of bringing up topics and talking about them, talking about very specific films and so forth. But wasn't long after that, I go back and I kind of look at some of what we've done. One of the first things we talked about, ironically, given what we just most recently talked about, that's going to go up and when by the time you hear this, it'll be up. Is we talked about WandaVision. At that time, it was very new, it just came out, and I remember thinking like, I don't have any intention of this being an MCU show, but like I just knew that it was so on my mind that it would be crazy not to talk about it, and I figured you were watching it as well, so I was like, let's talk.
Well, it was not only on your and my mind. I think everyone was talking about it.
Mind. Absolutely.
It would have been dumb of us to be like, I know everyone's talking about this one show, but let's not talk about it.
Absolutely. No. So I felt pretty confident in what we were doing, and that was a great one. One of the kind of first big deep dive films that we did, and I definitely intend to be releasing an edit of this, is we talked about Synecdoche, New York, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. So it was a good place to start. Then we followed that out with what I think were pretty great discussions about The Fountain, which was your pick, and a film that I had not revisited in a long time, but it was really good. That was one of those ones where I didn't necessarily know what my take on it was going to be, and I think by the end of that recording, I was like, I cracked the movie.
I think that's one of those films that kind of depends on where you are when in your life when you watch it.
Absolutely.
And I guess that could be said for any movie at any time, but I think specifically that movie, you need to be in the right mindset to really, I think, fully immerse yourself and fully appreciate that movie.
Yeah,
So
well, that's an interesting point because I think I agree very much on the point. Like, you could say that about any movie. That's kind of what makes movies amazing, and why I think, even to this, what we're doing here, I want to make sure that we're keeping a chronology where people can feel the in the moment of it. We recorded so much good stuff, so I want to get all that archived, but I also want people to really just pay attention to what we're doing going forward as much as anything else. Or if you are going to go back, to keep back that context in mind. And I'm doing some cool little things with the edits to kind of really emphasize that. But
do we have a theme song?
We do have a theme song, and yeah, it's a very cool theme song. I guess you haven't heard it. It doesn't have lyrics. It's just a beat I made on Logic and kind of just messed around. I actually like making music. It's weird. I just like using just very basic drum loops. I'm not actually talented or anything like that. However, I do find that I really enjoy the results once I work on them enough. So this is an example of that. I have an intro and an outro. There are two different roles.
Oh,
yeah. And what I did here, and I presume people are going to be hearing the intro before they hear us talk. But what I kind of brought up for the intro and the outro is two separate ones. I used some samples. So for the intro, I sampled Francis Ford Coppola from the end of Hearts of Darkness, the documentary about Apocalypse Now, the making of. And it's one of my favorite, bizarre, but truly meaningful. It's like all the things at once. It's like really off. Like, it's very off in a lot of ways. It feels like very not PC what he says, like the specific language he uses. I almost feel guilty using it because it's like, I'm not trying to get him in trouble for saying what he said.
Are you using the words too, or just
using the words? I'm using the words, but no, the meaning behind it is the point. So, what he says is, one day, and granted, he's talking from the perspective of 1991. So this is now, at least the first part of it has happened in terms of technology, or it's so much more advanced than it was then. He's like, now you can get a little video camera and some little fat girl in Ohio is going to take her father's video camera and make a beautiful film. And she's going to become the next Mozart. And I love that so much. And even the way he ends it, he's like, and she'll become the next Mozart. That's what I think anyway. That's my opinion. And that's how he ends the movie. And his whole point is obviously talking about Apocalypse Now is this gigantic production. He's like, cinema can be made so much simpler, and technology kind of allows for that, but it's also just the will. And I thought that was a very fitting thing. Originally, I wanted to use this because I actually made these intros months ago. I originally did it because, and this is something I wanted to bring up as well anyway, one of the agendas I have for this show, and it'll still happen going forward, but we've just kind of taken a different approach with these initial goings. And I like the approach we've taken. I like how it's panned out. I think it's made for a really dynamic show where we're covering very deeply some of our favorite or best or interesting films from throughout history and around the world. I mean, of course, my sort of millennial American bias, as is yours, is come up in it quite a lot, but that's okay. I don't mind. I think that's kind of probably what a bias the audience has as well. We're always very conscious to try to expand beyond that, but
we're American. We can't help it.
There's a crazy, I'm going to leave it in, but there was a crazy sort of weird refrain on the way when you said American, the way it delivered into my headphones, at least. It was kind of almost like you put a vocoder effect. No. So we have that perspective and all that, and then we've covered all these films. The thing is, though, my intention with this podcast for at some point going forward, and maybe on a sort of increasing ramp, or maybe we'll have it at the very least start with some side projects on the Patreon, which is something else I want to talk about. But what we want to do is really kind of start to get into more the actual perspective of people developing, creating, going into production on films right now, independent films, films that you're otherwise are going to be harder to find, harder to see, and really try to give a highlight to that, not just to promote the films, because look, I'm sure there's a lot of beautiful, great stuff, but it's not about that as far as I'm concerned. But really try to more understand the perspective of directors and filmmakers and producers and actors who are engaged in these things, and kind of trying to build a relationship, a coalition, if you will, between us and them and everyone involved, so that eventually we can kind of create a much better film society, if you, throughout the country, throughout LA, throughout the world. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. I have my eye towards the future. I mean, one of the reasons we do talk about, as many other podcasts do, about the state of the theater business and other aspects of the movie industry. There's the one hand of personal interest I have as just a film goer, but there's also a thing I'm trying to pay attention to, which is a lot is changing with the industry. And rather than just observe and report that to some degree, I want to actually get involved in steering it in a certain direction. And I look at this podcast and the larger enterprise that's going to expand out from it as being involved in that mission.
I mean, yeah, I think the fact that you and I are indie filmmakers, that in itself, the fact that you and I have produced things start to finish, that little bit of indie guerrilla filmmaking that I've been doing, and you doing your style of things. I think just waking up and making things in our own way is going to help that. And then talking about it on here is going to help people know that they can do it too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I more directly what I'm talking about, and we have yet to do one, but it's going to be happening, is what I'm saying, is I want us to start reaching out to people, doing interviews, doing more discussional forums with other people. Yeah, special guests who can also obviously weigh in on the movies we're deep diving into as well. And what I really want to do, because you know me, I love to connect the dots, is create that sort of holistic experience of, we're talking about something in the industry. We're talking about the films that this filmmaker we're bringing on has made. We're talking about the broader direction of things, where cinema is going, where we'd like it to go, how we can push it to go a certain way. And then that ties into a broader sense of the real world and real politics and real people and real issues. And then even from that, all kind of comes back to, and look how the great movies that we're talking about reflect this experience as well, because that's the real key, and why I think cinema is so important to me, as it is to many people. But when you really invest in it, it takes on a different level, is that this is how I understand the world. This is how I understand life, or it's certainly a reflection of that, or a way of understanding it and thinking about it. So, and I think we've brought that to a lot of the conversations we've had that I think have been really interesting. Everything from going over the 2 Blade Runner movies, where we really got to go deep into on that world and the way that world kind of, No, it was especially fun because you hadn't seen 2049, and I'm a big stan for 2049. I think that's the other thing I've enjoyed about this. You know, you said, "Oh, Dana," you're like, "Oh, I've learned a lot." Great quote. It's I know it wasn't your intention, but that's also a famous Trump quote. We learned a whole lot when Zach from the hospital after getting coronavirus. It was like, oh, it was October, months into the whole thing, and he's like, "Well, I learned a whole lot." Learned a lot. But yeah, this, you know, I like that you said that. Not that I'm like, oh, it's my job to teach you or anything, but it is.
Not even that. Just in conversations, I've learned, technical things from you for sure, but also I've learned about my own opinions on things that I wasn't, because if you don't see things, you don't know what you think about them yet, right?
No, absolutely. I'm so glad you say that.
You expose yourself to too many things, just to more types of movies than I think are typically up your alley, which has definitely been my favorite thing about this podcast, is getting out of my own little box of genres that I stick to and saying, you know what? Yeah, let me watch this old Japanese movie and read the subtitles and realize that I actually really love it. You know?
That I'm so glad what you just said, because that's more or less what I was trying to just get at, which is I want you to be, analogous to the audience that we're taking with us as well, is, finding, not just what I think, or what you think, but what they think, and starting to really expand into areas they didn't necessarily think they'd be going into. And also, and this is the thing about the balance that we struck, or the flip side to what I'm talking about, the sort of keeping up with current films bias, or the, for certain perspective of a millennial American bias. I actually think that this is, on the one hand, valid to say, but also obscuring what I think is really valuable about what we've been doing is we've been taking some of the biggest, pop cultural events, like whether it was the release of the Snyder Cut, or Cruella, or, most recently Black Widow and Loki. And we've been putting it through the lens of like, let's take this as seriously, or try to get as deep with this as we would with a film like The Servant, or Judas and the Black Messiah, or any of these other things. Like let's treat this like, or, Cronenberg's Crash, like let's treat this like it's worthy of that discussion. Another one of my favorites that was an early one, and something where I knew we were going to be able to do this, was when we covered Office Space, which, obviously is a cult classic studio comedy.
Cult classic.
Definitely earns that title. We covered a lot of the quote cult classics and talked a lot about what that means. But I really, really, really dug what we did there. And it was very exciting because it was a perfect example of what I mean when it just said, okay, you might look at Office Space as this, just this comedy about a lazy guy or whatever. And I think, I don't think you have to go too deep to understand, yes, this is a parody of white collar jobs. I understand people do get that, even on a more sharper intellectual satirist point of view. But we didn't really stop there. We went really, really deep on the whole psychology of this character, the hypnosis, this jealousy with Lombard, all of that, how that kind of reflects a broader societal pressure that I think is really relevant right now. I mean, that's the thing. We recorded that episode back in February. It couldn't be more relevant right now as people are going back to work, and there's this tension between management and employees about hours, about working from home or not working from home, the value of an office. That's been all over the news and in current discussion. And
absolutely,
I think where I stand
with
on
all
that
this work
issues,
from home stuff,
where I stand on that issues, it was probably clear from when you listen to the episode. But it's also a matter of just kind of having a consistency of perspective that I think you and I have brought to this and have continued to develop and will continue to develop, because films reflect the real world, and the real world, while diverse and full of many different things, there's a couple key plot threads, if you will, to how society functions, how human life functions. And you're going to see that reflected in movies of all genres, of all times, right? So that's what I really like when we were able to really kind of thread that through. If we're talking about Gate of Flesh and Tokyo Drifter, we're talking about a change in a post-war period. We're talking about the sort of
a reflection of their society at that time, and it's kind of like you get this insight into the filmmakers who were making it and where their minds were at based on what was happening around them.
Yeah, it's that what I always really try to focus in on with that and with everything, because I think that's just the key, is in order to understand how universal things are, you have to understand how specific they are. And I think when people try to understand universality in these broad, universal, in quotes, ways, they end up having very surface and unsophisticated and unhelpful and misleading ways of looking at things. And I say, no, put things in context, really look at it in the details. And then through those details, you'll discover the universal truth at the heart of it, because it's buried under the details. It's not above it. That's how you get there. I mean, like, quite honestly, the experience of some of these prostitutes is really exactly indistinguishable from the experiences of a character in Blade Runner, or the experiences of Jenna Rollins' character in Gloria, or the experience of anyone in crash in a totally bizarre kind of way. These things, or the Thing for that matter, John Carpenter's The Thing, that sense of paranoia, that sense of your job dominating your life and costing you
also
your life.
Trust. I mean, that story's largely about who can you trust, and the answer is really no one.
No, and Gate of Flesh has that whole everyone turns on each other thing. So yeah, that's kind of the many connections, or the meme of family in the Fast and Furious movies. It's about family, Dana. I don't know if you knew that. It's about family. I don't have friends. I got family. I think so yeah, to forecast some of the episodes, we're gonna be releasing this archive out of order. Everything's gonna be, time stamped and appropriately structured. But the reason I'm doing that out of order is because I really want to get some of the real bangers, if you will. They're all bangers, but I look at like we're constructing an album here. So I want the first track to really just wow you, but I don't want it to let down. And if we're going to have a slower period, I'd rather it to be well-timed slower. So we're going to start with Phantom Thread, which I think maybe that won't be the first one. I don't want to make any promises about the exact order. Just know that edit is basically ready to go. Because, maybe after I finish my edit on The Servant, that'll be a great place to start, or an edit on like The Thing, or I think actually one I really want to get out there, especially since it is one of the most recent we've done from 2 weeks ago, is the Chungking Express discussion we did. Because I think that more than almost anything else was kind of a really good example of us both kind of going on a journey with the film, and like going from confusion to expertise in real time, if you will, which I really like.
I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. Of a kind. But yeah, that kind of covers the basis of the highlights. I don't think there's an episode I didn't in particular mention. A few. We took care of the film Sleuth, the Michael Caine, Laurence Olivier one. That was one that you were very keen for me to see, which I had quite a reaction to.
It seemed visceral for you. How much
it did. Well, no, hold on. I don't want to say I disliked
the style.
I liked a lot of things in it, but other things really rubbed me the wrong way.
And that's when people have opinions.
Yeah, that's called having the opinions,
Yeah. It's been fun, and I'm excited to do more.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I think I
hope people like listening to us talk about movies.
I think they do. I mean, like, look, Dana, one of the things you have a very, very, and this is why I said I want to do this with you. You have a very kind of light, easy to get on with demeanor to you, and it helps me.
You need a good cop. You need a good cop, bad cop.
Exactly. It helps me for when I just want to be like, fuck
I'm
this
the
shit.
bad cop.
I am the bad cop. Yeah, I mean, another one that I definitely want us to get out as soon as possible, which, there's a little bit of catch with this one. I'm not going to get into it now. That's getting a little bit too much into how the sausage is made. But the top 5 Summer Jams films that we did.
Summer movies. I did.
Yeah, obviously that's very opportune right now, and we covered a lot of things when we talked about that. I like lists. We're definitely going to do more in the future. We'll take our time with it. We're not going to force them out all the time, like some podcasts do.
Other podcasts.
No. I like this podcast. That's what I kind of inspired by.
I don't know any, so.
Oh, that's good. Good. I like that you're untainted by by what other people.
I don't listen to movie podcasts, which is probably why I'm untainted. I listen to murder only.
Oh, is that what it is?
Shout out Crime Junkie. I'm a fan of you girls.
Okay.
I'm a Crime Junkie fan. What else? Park Predators. I love Park Predators. It's murders in the park.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my jams. Oh, and Lore. I'm a fan of Lore. I know everyone loves Lore. It's a TV show now, but I still listen to because it's like fairy tales basically, but it's for adults. The real fairy tales, the way they're really written, told. It's super fun.
Oh, yeah. Well,
so I think that's partially why I also don't tend to come in with, it's not that I'm not prepared, but I don't come in with like set things that I'm going to like, not everything that I have to say is set. It's just my own opinion. Mm-hmm. And I think for myself, if I tend to listen to other people, if I listen to podcasts, I'll be like, oh, they're right. Oh, I see their point. Oh, now I'm questioning what I thought. Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to give you my initial reaction.
No. I mean, look, some of those like I'm seeing this for the first time reactions have been really valuable. And I've actually had a few of those on here, like some of the stuff we talked about recently, including Chungking Express, as, you know, as noob like for Cinephiles it might sound. I hadn't seen that until we did. And it was a great kind of get that first sort of take on it. And in general, Dana, let me tell you, because I've been, like I said, editing, listening to some of the things we've recorded. You've had some hot takes in there, so don't sell yourself short.
I've got some hot takes.
You've come in with the index cards that you're putting on the table.
Sometimes.
Like you're, like you're you know, one of those Fox News hosts or something. You're just like
a couple of times I've had my little index card stack. Yeah.
No, it's I think it's gonna like, you know what, I was just reminded of my absolute hottest, most furious take I think we've ever recorded. And I'm definitely gonna have to modulate the audio on that so it's not blowing people's ears off. But when we talked about the Netflix film a couple months ago back in March, I Care a Lot, the one with Rosamund Pike. Mm-hmm. I think I kind of lost it there. I remember I didn't even gone back and edited it, but I remember being like, oh, that made my blood boil. That movie made my blood really boil with like, so why funny. Are you doing this? Why are you doing this to me?
And that's why we need a podcast, because with the type of people whose blood boil when we watch certain movies.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. All right, Dana. Well, I think, you know, I mentioned the Patreon plan. That's still going to be forthcoming. I want to get the audience a real good amount of time to get to know us, but not too long. We'll have that ready to go. We'll have the feed up. We'll have I'm looking into a good podcast service that's going to make everything super easy to upload to everywhere people listen to it, and have all the appropriate details and even better sound mixing on things. So that'll make the whole thing easier. And like I said, I think though, to clear what I'm talking about with Patreon, like in terms of like, oh, all of a sudden is this pod gonna be put behind a paywall? The answer to that, and this will remain true for always, I promise, listeners, is no, it will not be. This pod will always be available to anyone who wants to listen to it for free. What the Patreon is meant to do is we're going to be working on some additional projects. I've had these ideas for a while. Special episodes, exactly. And kind of even special ongoing little series that I want to create. And that's going to be what you get when you invest in the Patreon. But the good news is that if your main interest is this show, supporting us on Patreon will help this show improve, get things like better equipment and better editing, and maybe even an editor producer to just take care of it. So I'm not spending, because I realize, and granted, it might just be that I'm new to it, so it takes me a lot longer. My workflow is not up to the highest speed, but I spend a long time editing these things, and we record long recordings. These episodes tend to be 2 hours on the short end, close to 3 hours on the long end. Or I think when we did the Snyder Cut, it was almost as long as the Snyder Cut itself.
It may have been. I
think it was about 4 hours, which I think I couldn't think of something more fitting. People will think it's like a live commentary side by side, which, you know, if you want to play it that way, you can. But yeah, I actually speaking of, I think I didn't even think about it too much, but when we recorded the Black Widow pod that'll be going up this week, we also talked quite a bit about the history, or at least a very important chapter in the history of Marvel Studios, which I think was a nice little compliment to the deep dive we went into on the DCEU and Zack Snyder's films, because I had a lot of fun really breaking that down for people. I mean, that information's it's all readily available to people who, with a Google, some Wikipedias, reading a couple interviews. But I think my whole point in both cases, as always, is to not just relay the information, it's to use the information to kind of build a narrative and to make a point, which is what I did in both cases. I really like what the point I landed on with the Black Widow thing, because if you're watching that film, you might be wondering, why are we getting this movie now? Like, what's going on with that? Like, why are they doing this in phase 4? Why is Scarlett Johansson kind of like second fiddle in her own movie? No offense to anybody. And I actually think, as we detail, I think Scarlett Johansson more or less wanted it this way. But it's an interesting question. I think we've come across probably the best and most comprehensive and thorough answers to that. Or like with Phantom Thread, if you want to know, why is this a movie about people poisoning each other? I think we figured that one out too. We cracked the cases. That's what we do. I'm like a detective, like a sleuth. But okay, Dana, I think that about does it. People are going to be hearing a lot more of us from here on out, and I'm very excited about that. And we're going to be hearing a lot more of each other as well.
I'm excited too. What do I sound like on podcasts? I'm probably
you sound good. Voice. Yeah, you said you hate your voice. That's the ironic thing. I don't know when I got used to it, but I got used to it, I think, before we even really started doing this. I'm used to hearing recordings of my voice, so I know what I sound like. And if anything, it's weird. It's just gonna make me sound like a total narcissist. But like, seriously, like I like listening to myself. I do. I'm like, this is better than most of the other pods I listen to. I hear to a lot of great ones.
Character, but not on the phone talking for a long period of time.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I'm excited and I'm having fun. And we'll talk this week about a movie.
Yes, we're going to be doing Nausicaa, The Valley of the Wind, the Hayao Miyazaki film, is directorial. The second directorial film, but the first one that was produced under Toshio Suzuki, and what be a part of what became Studio Ghibli. That's the kind of let me make sure I get all the facts straight for all the fucking nerds who want to be like, well, actually, Studio Ghibli only started with Castle in the Sky. I know, we all know. Like I don't want to ever hear that complaint from anybody. Oh, last thing related to that is something I'm going to be adding to these episodes, not probably with the archive ones, but I'm letting everyone know now. It'll be something going forward. I like this as an idea just because we do go a long time. We say a lot of stuff. I try to be as accurate as possible. But we're going to be setting up an email where you can write into us. And if anything, not your opinions, though, if you want to give them, fine. But if anything I say is factually incorrect, or there's a correction you want me to make or Dana to make, go ahead. Let me know what it is. I'll fact check your fact check. And if it's true, I'll make that correction. All right. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't be all butthurt about something I said about something that, happened in 1995. Okay.
But Marcus, this won't be a podcast if people don't get butthurt about stuff that doesn't matter. Please let them get butthurt.
I know. That's why I'm saying this. I'm saying it because I know people are going to get butthurt about it. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to I foreshadowed it.
It's the magic of the internet.
I think my favorite foreshadowing, by the way, of that was when we talked about the MCU movies. I already know what people are going to say, because I post stuff on Reddit enough to know like how people react to certain things. Like, I know people are going to be like, how dare you put Captain America First Avenger and Captain America Winter Soldier that low on your list? How dare you? Are you crazy? Did you swallow crazy pills? And I'm like, no, I didn't. I actually gave this list a lot of thought and I stand by it. So deal with it. All right. But all right, Dana, talk soon.
Talk soon. Bye.
Get some women, take them to the Peachtree Dams. I say get liquored up and take them to the Peachtree Dams.
Do you know what I mean? You know why? It's a scary thing to give to a guy like me. Do you know what I mean?
I say get liquored up and take them to the Peachtree Dams.
Do you know what I mean?
I say get liquored up and take them to the Peachtree Dams.
Do you know
liquored up and take him to the Peachtree Dance.
Do you know what I mean? You know why? Final cut. It's a scary thing to give to a guy like me.
Rule number 1 of Cinphomaniac: tell everybody about Cinphomaniac. Your friends, family, anybody you know that's a little bit twisted in the head and loves films, definitely tell them. Rule number 2 of Cinphomaniac is tell everybody about Cinphomaniac.
Take him to the Peachtree Dance.